All right, everybody, welcome back to the Dbot project. I know it's been a little while, but I was waiting on some parts. I've done some testing and it looks like I've resolved some issues, but there's still more to get done as the printer isn't working the way I want it to perfectly. Now, last time we left off, I installed the new hot end, which is working great by itself, but I was having some extrusion issues. And that was due to what you see here. I'll give you some close-up shots of it, but this is a extruder that I printed out. And as you can see here, there's an arm that's broken, or missing in this case, because it broke in half. And that was due to too much pressure on it, it just cracked. But the problem was I was getting skips on the filament extruding, and you were getting bad prints. So this just was not working out. I had already replaced it with the second version, which is the one you see, and I was done with that. So I went, and instead of trying to go more cost-effective route, I went with this. And what you're seeing now is the new Bondtech extruder. This guy wasn't cheap, but since I've installed it, I've had zero issues with filament not being pressed against the hot end and extruding. It's been working great, and I really think it's a well worth it upgrade. It definitely did what I needed to do. I did have to modify the mount because they don't have one that's exactly designed for the M5 screws that are used to mount it to the frame here. And hopefully in the future I can get another hot end like I had before, but the real one that's dual extrusion, and then of course another Bondtech. But other than that, that's been great. So with that change, did it work? Yes, it did. I did one more thing before I started to print too much, and that was to get this guy right here. And all this is basically some Magnum Lube, I think, right? Yeah, Magnum Lube. And I'll go ahead and get a close-up of that too for you. But I use this on the threaded rods, both on the right and the left, and it smoothed out the movement. Beforehand, when it would move, I was getting some binding, but afterwards, it's worked out great. It moves smoothly all the way up and down. Now you might want to know the final height. With leaving 5 millimeters for a drop at the end, which I should probably leave a little bit more, so let's leave 10, I get a 400 millimeter print height on this unit in the configuration it's currently in. And that's not bad. I was going for 415, but I can deal with 400. Other changes that I made since the last time this printer's been on the channel is this right here. I used to have all the little guys for the cable chain for the section at the beginning, but what I did is I printed out some bigger ones that are longer, they're solid. And the reason being is this section doesn't really need to curl like the end down here. And what this did is it helped support the cable chain, because all these little guys, there's a little bit of wiggle room because it has a joint. And what that does is it makes it sag. And it was hitting the bar here as it was going back and forth. So with these guys, it's lifted it up enough that it doesn't hit the bar. So definitely a nice little upgrade there. The custom mounts that I designed with the captive nuts on them from a previous video have been working out great, no issues there. And I have been able to print some items. The first thing I tried to print that I had tons of issues with the previous extruder was a benchy. Just because I was trying to get the printer to work and the extruder wasn't working. Once I got the new one, this guy came out perfectly fine. I'll show you some close-ups of that guy too. As you can see, everything's really good compared to what I was getting before, which was pretty much spaghetti. I also decided to print out a Marvin, and he's definitely a bit bigger. I increased the size because I didn't want to print out a regular size one. I learned a little bit about the supports when you increase the Marvin size, and I don't know what happened at the top for his loop, but I haven't printed another one, so I'll figure that out. I did remove some supports that I recommended in that spot that might have done it. But to test out the full height, what did I print? Well, I printed this, and I have coated it in some primer gray, and it is very, very tall. This is the max height of the printer will go. So I did this as a test of the height, and also it was a project I wanted to do. And it's a piece of the lighthouse, which I'm working on. Now, this guy here in the beginning, which is about the height of the Marvin, it's fine. And actually, the layer shift that does occur is around where Marvin had a problem, and it's right here. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it, but there's a layer shift right here, a couple inches up, and it moved off to the side. Then as you go up, it's fairly consistent. Another tiny shift, smaller, tiny shift. But then as it goes up, you start to get these artifacts where it wobbles a little bit more and more. And then at the top, almost less than a centimeter each time, it is just changing shape. It almost looks like somebody squished the top a little bit and it made little ripples that are about a 1/4 inch apart. And it just over and over, and you can see them even here, it's banding little ripples here. And this is a filler primer, and it can't fill that in initially. But there's a lot of wobble at the top. So either I have a bent rod that's causing the wobble, or it's what I think it is, and I'm going to do the next upgrade. And that is on the bed at the back, we have the 4-roller design. 2 pressed against the back, 2 pressed against the front. Now I had the same design for the carriage here, but I changed it with one that's tensioned by a screw on each side. So now it's only a 3, it's a triangle. So your top 2 rest and your third one presses, which then makes sure you get even pressure on both rollers. Now on these guys, if you're slightly off on one, it's going to be loose. And I think that's what it is, because when I rolled the rollers on here, I feel that there's slightly different tensions on some. Like on this one, the top front is loose, and the back top is loose on this one on the right, or my right, your left. But all the other rollers seem to have pressure on them. So it's almost as if it's twisted, where this is pulling down and this is pulling this way. So you got to twist to the pressure. And that may be due to the positions of the rods, pulling and pushing the bed a certain way. So this rod may be a little bit forward, this one may be a little bit back, but nonetheless, that's a lot to get right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a different design that has a 3-point system and allow me to tighten it up and get it more like this carriage, which works a lot better. Now, as far as future upgrades on this printer, I have cleaned up the wiring fairly decently. I did run into an issue with the box that I designed for the GT25, I believe 60 board. That box, part of it was printed on a different printer and part of it was printed on this printer. And it turns out they aren't exactly the same size, and it's actually the older printer that was off. So I'll have to reprint that and get that all situated. The wiring is pretty much done in that scenario. I did order some connectors and cleaned it up a little, but I need to reprint the box for that, and I'll show that later. Other than that, upgrades, once I get the height wobble fixed, I don't really think there's much more that I need to do other than if I want to go dual extrusion, which I kind of do, because that was the original plan with this printer. Unfortunately, that's not worked out, but for right now, I'm just going to get the wobble fixed, and once that's good to go, I can do a couple test prints at full height, and then I'll know that all I have to do is, if I want to upgrade, I can change out the extruder to a second one, and the hot end to probably a Chimera, because I really like that design for height-wise. The only other thing besides doing that upgrade later is the noise. The unit isn't too loud as far as movements, but the fan on the power supply and the fans I have on the box currently are way too loud. So I'm going to have to find some better fans and upgrade those. I already did one on the power supply and it didn't do enough. It lowered the volume, but not enough to where I want it. Thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me and leave your comments and questions below. Until next time, enjoy what you're doing, do it every day, and don't let anyone stop you. That should be good.